When a body goes undiscovered for days, weeks, or even months, the people who walk through that door first are rarely the ones who crack the case. The investigators photograph the scene, the medical examiner notes the obvious, but the real timeline is already being written by something most of us would rather not think about. It is being written by insects. Tiny, persistent, almost mechanical in their reliability, they arrive on a schedule so predictable that a trained scientist can read them like the hands of a clock. This is the strange and surprisingly precise world of forensic entomology, and once you understand how it works, you will never look at a fly the same way again. Let me start with the obvious question. How can a maggot tell you when someone died? It sounds absurd until you understand that insects do not grow randomly. The species that matter most to investigators go through what is called complete metamorphosis, which means their lives unfold in distinct stages, each one taking a known amount of time. An egg hatches into a larva. That larva eats and grows and sheds its skin in measured steps, getting larger at each one. Eventually, it stops feeding, hardens into a pupa, and finally emerges as an adult. Every one of those transitions has a clock attached to it, and that clock has been measured in laboratories thousands of times. If you know the species and you know the temperature, you can run the math backward and arrive at a window of time when the very first egg was laid on the body. The first arrivals are almost always flies. They are extraordinary at finding the dead, drawn in by the faint chemistry of decomposition long before a human nose would notice anything at all. Within minutes or hours of death, under the right conditions, a blowfly can locate a body, and the females begin laying eggs in the moist openings: the eyes, the nose, the mouth, any wound. Blowflies are the brilliant metallic ones, shining green or deep blue, almost beautiful if you can forget what they are doing. Their larvae burrow into soft tissue, scraping and liquefying it so they can absorb it. And because they are tunneling headfirst into the flesh, they actually breathe through the back end of their bodies. It is grotesque and elegant at the same time, and it is the foundation of an entire forensic discipline. Now here is the part that trips people up, and it is important. When a scientist calculates how long those larvae have been developing, they are not calculating the moment of death. They are calculating the moment the flies arrived. Most of the time, those two events are close enough that it barely matters, but not always. Imagine a body left out during 3 straight days of cold rain. The flies stay grounded, the eggs are not laid, and the clock simply does not start until the weather breaks. A careless reading would put the death 3 days too late. This is exactly why a good forensic entomologist never relies on a single insect. They read the whole community. That is where beetles enter the story. Beetles are the second wave, the ones that show up days after the flies, and they are far less fussy about the weather. Rain does not stop them. Some species begin burrowing beneath a body, slowly working it down into the soil, while others arrive later still, once the remains have dried out, and feed on the tough leftovers, the skin and hair that the maggots ignored. Each of these specialists prefers a particular stage of decomposition, which means the lineup of insects on a body is essentially a calendar. Flies for the fresh, beetles for the aging, certain species only for the dried and the desiccated. By identifying who is present and who is conspicuously absent, an expert can estimate not just days but weeks of elapsed time, far beyond what any single maggot could reveal. Temperature is the thread that runs through all of it, because insects are cold-blooded and their development is locked to the warmth around them. Heat speeds everything up. Cold slows it down. A blowfly larva that pupates in 8.5 days at a comfortable 70 degrees might take far longer in a chilly basement and far less time in the height of summer. This is why investigators do something that sounds almost obsessive. They pull weather records for the exact location, hour by hour, and use a calculation built around accumulated heat over time. If the days were warmer than the laboratory baseline, the insects developed faster, and the true time of death is a little earlier than the raw numbers suggest. If it was colder, the opposite. With that correction, a vague guess becomes a defensible window, sometimes narrowed down to a specific day. And a specific day is often everything. Think about what a timeline does to an alibi. A suspect insists they were hundreds of miles away during the week of the death. The body says otherwise, and the insects on it agree with the body. Or a suspect tries to mislead investigators by claiming death happened far more recently than it did, hoping to fit their movements into a tidy story. The beetles and the flies do not care about the story. They develop on their own schedule, indifferent to lies, and that indifference is precisely what makes them such powerful witnesses. They cannot be coached, bribed, or frightened on the stand. They simply are what they are. This is also where cover-ups unravel. People who move bodies, who store them somewhere cold and then dump them outdoors, who set fires or stage scenes, often forget that they cannot hide the insects, and the insects keep records. A body that was kept indoors before being abandoned in a forest will carry the wrong colonizers for that environment, or will be missing the species that should already be present after so many days outside. Aquatic insects can place a body in or near water. The presence of a species that only lives in one region can betray that remains were transported from somewhere else entirely. Each of these mismatches is a thread, and a careful entomologist pulls on it until the staged version of events comes apart. But perhaps the most quietly remarkable thing this science does is the opposite of catching the guilty. It frees the innocent. Across the years, there have been cases where a conviction rested on a flawed estimate of when a person died, a window that placed the accused at the scene. Years later, a re-examination of the insect evidence done with better data and better methods shifts that window by days. Suddenly, the accused has an alibi that holds. Suddenly, the timeline the jury believed was simply wrong. Insects do not have an agenda. They do not want anyone convicted, and they do not want anyone released. They only report the truth of their own biology, and sometimes that truth arrives years too late for comfort, but right on time for justice. What I find genuinely humbling about all of this is the sheer reliability of something so small. We build elaborate technologies, we chase confessions, we argue over circumstantial details, and meanwhile a creature with no awareness of any of it has been keeping perfect time the entire while. A larva does not know it is solving a murder. A beetle does not know it is exposing a lie. They are following ancient instructions written into their biology over millions of years, eating and growing and transforming exactly as they always have. The scientist is simply the translator, the one who knows how to read what the insects have already recorded. So the next time you hear about a case that hinged on the time of death, remember that the answer may not have come from a laboratory machine or a brilliant interrogation. It may have come from a handful of maggots collected in a jar, kept at a steady temperature, and watched patiently until the first one pupated. It may have come from identifying which beetles were present and which were not. It may have come from a weather report and a careful calculation about accumulated heat. The dead cannot speak and the guilty will not, but the insects are always talking. Forensic entomologists are simply the ones who have learned the language. And in case after case, that language has told the truth when nothing and no one else would. They sit in courtrooms in the form of jars and photographs and careful charts, and they outlast every shifting account a witness can offer. There is something almost poetic about it, that the answer to a human mystery so often crawls in on 6 legs, asking for nothing, owing nothing, and revealing everything. The smallest witnesses, it turns out, are often the most honest ones we have.